by VolunteerMatch. Today we're going to be talking about engaging volunteers on Facebook, and we are very lucky to have John Hayden with us. Before we get started, just a few logistics. We will be recording this webinar session today and posting it on YouTube afterwards. And we will send you an email within a day or two with links to both the recording on YouTube and the slide deck. So no worries if you're having trouble keeping up with your notes, or if you want to share it with colleagues, it will be available. Also, if you have questions for John during the session, you can type those into the chat box at the bottom right of your screen, or you can ask them on Twitter using the hashtag VMLearn. And that's about it, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our wonderful speaker now. John Hayden is one of the most sought-after nonprofit digital marketing experts around. He has a sincere passion for changing the world, so it's something we can definitely relate to. He's spoken at the Nonprofit Technology Conference, the New England Federation of Human Societies, the New Media Expo, BBCon, Social Media for Nonprofits, AFP New Jersey, and a bunch of others. John is also an instructor for Charity How-To and Marketing Prof University, so he is quite the teacher. He's also the author of Facebook Marketing for Dummies and Facebook Marketing All-in-One, and these books are super valuable, even if you're not a dummy, I promise. He's also a regular contributor to the Huffington Post, the Social Media Examiner, NP Engage, and the Razoo Foundation blog. So he is all about sharing his knowledge, and we are really lucky to have him here sharing his knowledge with us today. One more announcement. You may have noticed that
Shari, thank you.
Oh, yeah. One more announcement.
I didn't want to interrupt. I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. You may have noticed that the rest of you are on mute. That's because for this webinar, we're going to let John talk first. Meanwhile, please input your questions as you have them into the chat box or on Twitter using VMLearn. And we will have a Q&A session after John is done with his initial presentation, where we will answer all of your questions. So stay with us until then. He has some really wonderful information to share with us before the Q&A period. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to John right now.
Thank you so much for the intro, Shari. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to show my screen, and let me see, I'm going to go slideshow. Okay, so welcome everybody to using Facebook to engage volunteers. There is that hashtag VMLearn, VMLearn. So please post questions there or in the questions box. I won't be able to do Twitter at the same time because I'm not a mutant or a superhuman being. I have to focus on one thing at a time like most everybody else. So the agenda here is, and Shari, please interrupt if you can't hear me, or if there's any technical issue, or people are confused about something. If you could just watch out for that, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay. But my goal is to go for about 35 to 40 minutes, and then open it up for Q&A and have a dialogue at the end. Okay. So here we go. So the agenda is, first of all, we're going to talk about the problem with Facebook, because as some of you may know, there is a problem with Facebook, but it's not what you think it is, as the way that I'm going to describe it. We'll talk about brand voice versus friend voice and what the difference is there. The newsfeed algorithm, how does that affect my page's reach? We'll get into that just a little bit. And then we'll get into posting, posting best practices in terms of content type, and then asking people to volunteer using a content calendar, and then looking at, what is the best stuff that we're posting? How do we know what's working, and how do we know it's not working? Okay. Before we go any further, I just want you to take some notes. So grab a pad, a paper, and a pen. The reason why is because I guarantee it, I will mention a resource that's not in the slides, and you want to write that down on the notepad. Also, write down in the middle of it action steps. So these are 2 or 3 things that you're going to do right after the webinar, so you can put this stuff that you're learning, this really good material, you can put that into practice right away. Okay? So with that, we're going to jump right in. There is a problem with Facebook, okay? And the problem with Facebook isn't the algorithm and the fact that they're a public company and they're taking everybody's money and they just want to sell you ads. That's not really the problem. The problem is that people don't use Facebook to connect with nonprofits at all. Okay? And here's some research here. It says, you know, really the question is, why are you using Facebook? And I'm just going to read some of these responses. I'll read the top 3. To see what my friends are up to relieve boredom, to look at my friends' pictures. And that's it. So people aren't going into Facebook when they wake up in the morning, they have a cup of coffee. They're not opening up Facebook and pulling out their credit card. They're not saying, geez, which organizations can I volunteer for today? They're not even thinking about any organization. They just want to see what their friends are up to. Okay, so that's the first problem. The second problem is that when you are seen in the news feed by your community, people really don't trust what you say. And this is nothing personal. So you shouldn't take this personally. You shouldn't be offended by this. This is how people work. And I have a pizza restaurant around the corner from my house called Armando's Pizza. I always use this example. And Armando's Pizza has really great pizza, okay? Excellent pizza, a short walk for me too, so it's great. And but if when I first moved into the neighborhood, if Armando's Pizza said, hey, we have great pizza, I might say, let me decide for myself. But you know what? My neighbors tell me. My neighbors told me, hey, you want some good pizza? Go to Armando's. I take that with a lot of credibility. You know, actual people who aren't biased. So here it says, you know, 70% of us trust brand recommendations from friends, but we only trust those brands about 10% of the time, those same exact brands, right? Now this has been true for a long time, and this is why word of mouth marketing, as you may have heard, is the most powerful sort of communication when you want to influence a community, and Facebook is where it works best. And there has been research on it, but the word of mouth capability of Facebook surpasses every other social network. Okay, so now we have these two problems, right? People don't want to hear from us, and when they do hear from us, they take our message with a grain of salt. Okay, so where do we start? The place that we start is the friend voice. We have to kind of get away from the brand voice, and we have to start with the friend voice. The friend voice always starts with understanding your people. What are they talking about? What do they care about? And I'm going to show you just a couple quick tactics you can use to find out some really you know, enlightening and possibly surprising information about your Facebook fans. Okay, so graph search is on most people's computer. Okay, so in other words, if you open up Facebook and you go to the search field at the top and you start typing in a sentence, or like I have in the screenshot here, pages liked by women who like Habitat for Humanity Twin Cities. Okay, if I type that in, I'm going to get the pages liked by women who like Habitat for Humanity. So graph search is basically the ability to search through this incredible network of friends, friendships, friend connections, and everything that all these people like, okay? And all the connections that they have, the groups that they belong to, the interests they have, the pages that they've liked. That's what graph search is about. And it's really powerful when you start using this as an organization to do some research on your community, right? So let's look at this a little bit, you know, a little bit more granular here. We see Minnesota Wild, politics, architecture. So this organization can start getting some hints about maybe the topics they should address, or maybe partnering with another organization about a campaign. Okay, so you can get some really great insight from your Facebook fans. And here is a list of search strings that you can type into Facebook graph search and get some really, really valuable stuff. Okay, so I'll leave you with this. I want to keep going for the just for the sake of time. Next question is, usually, you know, after we understand our people, so we start to understand what our people like, and now the next question is, well, how do we start? Let's say we have a volunteer opportunity coming up, or a campaign. You know, something like that is coming up, and we're also doing email marketing, we're doing direct mail, and we have stuff on our website, and we have a blog, and we're tweeting about it. what are we going to do on Facebook? How are we going to get the word out on Facebook? How are we going to maybe grow our fan base or communicate with our constituents who have liked our Facebook page? How do we leverage that asset, really? Okay. The first rule in any campaign is to start with your database, not Facebook. Okay. Don't start with Facebook. Start with your database. Your database is a place, it's basically a list of people who are subscribers, email subscribers, donors, volunteers. Okay. So subscribers, donors, volunteers. That's what we can define as the community. Okay. Then, of course, there's the network. The network is the friends of the community. Okay. Now, what you do is you, and this is going to get kind of straight to the point, but you select the best segment for the specific promotion. So, in other words, let's say you have a volunteer opportunity coming up, or you have a big campaign coming up, and you really need to amp up volunteer signups. Okay. Probably the most likely segment would be people who have previously volunteered or people who are previously interested in this. Okay? So maybe start with a specific segment. And then you're going to encourage your community to tell their friends. Now, how do you do this? How do you encourage your community to tell your friends? Well, let's think about that. Your community is connected to their friends where? They're connected to their friends on Facebook. So this is where you might take an email and send out an email and say, hey, we're looking for volunteer signups, blah, 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 and you can sign up on our Facebook page or check out what our latest volunteer is doing. Here's an update on our Facebook page about this. You can, use your email to really engage your Facebook fans, okay? And there are a number of other different tactics that I'm going to go through, a little bit later on. A plan. Now, some of you are looking at this and you've just dropped your coffee cup. You're saying, what is this thing right here that we're looking at? And what this is basically a plan, kind of a plan of how everything works together, how everything integrates together, okay? And this is, you can use it, you can steal it. Basically, what this is where in the middle we want conversion. We want people to convert. And this can apply to any organization signing a petition, making a donation, signing up as a volunteer. It really doesn't matter, but we want people to somehow sign up, okay? And then we're using other channels to kind of bring people there. And what's unique about Facebook is that in many ways, once they sign up as a volunteer, we can then give them opportunities right away to tell their friends. Okay, and I would say that's probably one of the most important parts of any promotion, any kind of campaign, is that as soon as someone crosses that threshold and they do the action that you want them to do, again, volunteer, sign a petition, make a donation, whatever it is you want them to do, the very next step should be thank you, tell your friends. Thank you, tell your friends. And the reason why that is because, as we'll look at before, you want your existing community to tell their friends, like I'm pointing out here. Okay, so this is just reinforcing it. This is something that you might want to sit down with and look at, how are all our different channels and assets, how are they integrated together, and does it make sense? Okay, the incentive on the right-hand side, there always has to be something in it for your fan base, and I'll get into that in a little bit more later on. Okay. So usually one question I get often is how often should I post to our Facebook page, and also what time should I post content to my Facebook page? Now, your Facebook page actually gives you this answer instantly, okay? If you go to Insights on your Facebook page and you look at posts, above your posts you're going to see a chart that says when your fans are online, and it will show you exactly when most of your fans are online, and that's the time that you want to post your updates. However, I don't want to mislead you. I think it's important to try different times because you will be reaching different people, so it's important to try different times during the day. Some pages have found, we're posting, later in the afternoon, even though that's not the biggest slump. So in other words, you want people to engage with your updates. You don't want people to just see them. And that's why it's important to vary the time. Okay? Generally speaking, based on the research, if you had no clue where to start, it's a good idea to start in the nighttime, okay? Nighttime is probably when you're going to get the most engagement, between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night. And I'm talking local time, when most of your Facebook fans, you know, the time for most, that applies to most of your Facebook fans, okay? And why is that? That's because people get home from work, they have to make dinner, take care of the kids, do the homework, and then finally they have a little bit of time for themselves. They open up Facebook, or they look at it on their iPhone. You know, they look at their iPhone. Okay, so the research does say consistently, time and time and time again, post at night, post at night. The other part of the research says that Saturdays and Sundays are huge, huge. HubSpot has done some research around this, and also Buddy Media a couple years ago did some research on this, where they found that the like percent is massive on Saturdays and Sundays. And why is that, right? Think about your own behavior. You're hanging out at, say, the family reunion, you know, and you're not excited about the family reunion. So you are opening up Facebook, you want to see what your friends are up to. And what's the easiest thing to do while you're talking to Uncle Earl? The easiest thing to do is click like, click like, click like. So that's what people do. But the point about that also is that people are using Facebook more on the weekends, and the other key is that organizations and brands are not using Facebook. So your competition is lower and your activity or potential engagement is higher on the weekends, okay? And also, obviously, you want to kind of vary the tone of the message. So on the weekend, Saturday, you're going to have a relaxed weekend type of post, nothing really hardcore or serious. Sundays, you might have something that's slightly more spiritual depending upon your community, depending upon your fan base. Okay? And you can go back and use graph search to see what might be appropriate on a religious day. Okay? So when should I post online? So that's that topic now. Now let's talk about posting links. Facebook has done a lot of changes with the newsfeed recently, the newsfeed algorithm, addressing this issue of links, okay, and I'm going to address that in just a couple of slides, but before we start talking about how to post the actual content on Facebook, it's important to not think about Facebook as a browser, okay? So when you close your eyes, if you think about Facebook and you using Facebook and your people using Facebook, get rid of the image of the laptop, get rid of the image of the desktop, erase it from your mind, and start creating content that is optimized for mobile, okay? So, and why is that? Well, look at the slide that I'm sharing right now. So twice as much sharing happens on mobile versus desktop, twice as much sharing. 70% use social media from mobile, so 70% of social media users are using it from mobile, okay? There was another research I saw where the top social networks on mobile devices are Pinterest and Instagram. Then we're looking at Facebook, and then Twitter, okay? So visual, right? So that statistic, that study really talks about visual, and I'll talk about the visual content in a second. But focus a lot on visual content and keep things really short and sweet. And it might be a really good idea when you post an update to your Facebook page, go to your iPhone, go to your Android, and just look at that update and see do you have to scroll a couple of screens to read it? Do you have to click read more to read the text? You know, look at your own posts and see how they appear on mobile. Okay? If they look good on mobile, you don't have to worry about the browser. Don't think about the browser anymore. Okay? So in terms of URLs, don't post short URLs. Don't shorten the URL. And we all know and love Twitter. And Twitter's the reason why short URLs actually exist. There's no other reason on the planet Earth why a short URL would be needed except for Twitter. Okay, so Twitter kind of created this whole cottage industry of short URL companies. But they're not needed on Facebook. There's literally no need to post a short URL. And in fact, it's not recommended because you're taking away critical information, right? When you post a long URL on Facebook, let's say it's boston.com. You're sharing a Boston Globe article with me, and I see boston.com. I pretty much know what to expect. I'm going to go to boston.com. If you share something and has a bit.ly, something like that, I don't know where I'm going. And I may not be a Twitter user. Keep in mind, most Facebook users don't use Twitter. Okay, so the short URL ideas is kind of foreign, or where is there a short URL? There's confusion there. Okay, and the research shows that long URLs get 3 times as many clicks. Okay, now in terms of links, again, Facebook has updated the algorithm so that it's not really that effective anymore to post a link in a photo. Okay. Now, if it's a really great photo and it gets going and there's already some momentum on it, right? So people are commenting, liking, sharing. Certainly, it might be a good idea to update the description of the photo and then include a link. Okay, because that image already has some momentum to it. But you don't want to post a link in a photo. The reason why is because Facebook recently updated the algorithm to say, we'd rather have you post links like they're supposed to be posted. Okay? So when you post a link on Facebook, it generates a preview, and you can select a picture, you can actually edit the title of the article, and you can edit the description of the article as well. Okay? Facebook wants you to post links this way. And they said, according to their research, Facebook users prefer links posted as links like this. Facebook users don't necessarily, engage with the links posted in other formats. So, for example, a status update, if you're doing a status update and then just type a short URL and that's it. If you're posting a photo or a video and there's in the caption, you're writing a short description and then posting a link. So Facebook is essentially giving those types of posts lower visibility and giving link posts like this higher visibility. All right? And so the way to think about this is, okay, wait, post links. Let's think about this. How should we approach this? If you want to post a link, post it like a regular human being. Okay? No one in the world, or not many people, only marketers and communications people, we think we're being really clever when we take a photo and we upload it to Facebook and we put a link in the description. Okay? And that used to be fine and good. But what Facebook is realizing is that users don't necessarily like that way of posting a link. So, and in fact, there's really no need to, because the link post now generates a massive photo. Okay. Now on the back end, I'm going to switch gears slightly. On the back end on your website, you want to make sure that you have a beautiful featured image that's associated with every web page on your website, or every web page that people would potentially share. This is going to apply if you have a blog. If you have a blog, you want to make sure that each individual blog post has a beautiful featured image that is going to capture people's attention. Now I'm getting a little bit more detailed here. The dimensions for the URL for the image are 1200 by 627. That's the best size, 1200 by 627, and that will look beautiful as a preview image, like this one does right here. Okay. If you use WordPress, there's a plugin called the All-in-One SEO plugin, and it has a social feature in it that allows you to configure how a specific blog post will appear in Facebook. You have a lot of control with that plugin. But I'm going to back up and not go down that tangent any longer. Okay. So tips for posting links: keep the title concise. Okay. If you happen to post a link and it generates the URL in the title, you don't really need the URL. So it might say CNN or Boston Globe or the source. You don't really need that because you have the URL. Keep the description really short. Use action words. Okay. Use action words, verbs, and avoid clickbaiting. So clickbaiting is another area where Facebook is really coming down hard on publishers. Okay, and they're basically giving these type of links less visibility, and I'll give you just a little bit more detail. Basically what they've done is they've updated the newsfeed algorithm so that if someone clicks on a link and they go to a web page, Facebook is now measuring how long that person spends on that web page. If they spend very little time, Facebook is thinking there's not value. That person clicked on it, they didn't get what they expected, they didn't get value, and they're coming back to Facebook. Okay, so Facebook doesn't want that. Facebook wants users to share and brands to share valuable content, not stuff that's going to trick you. And the biggest offender of this of tricking is basically clickbait. So clickbait is when you see an article and it says the title, all you see is this mother's son was being bullied. You're never going to believe what she did. So you have to click on it in order to get the answer. It's kind of a little game that way. And Facebook is basically putting the kibosh on that. Okay. And ask questions when you post links. That's another good tip. So maybe a quick summary of the article or a specific part, and then ask a question. What do you think about this? Okay. Now links get the least engagement. Okay. So links get lots of clicks, but links get the least engagement. And when you think about it, it makes sense. If your friend posts a link on Facebook, you're not really going to like it or comment it or comment on it or share it. You'll probably just click on the link and go visit the website. That's what most people do. Okay, and the research right here shows that you're not going to like, comment, or share a link. So it's really important to be clear in your head about why are we posting a link. And the goal with posting a link should be to drive traffic. Okay, because you're not going to get the engagement. If you're trying to engage your Facebook fan base, you're going to use text updates, photos, and videos, not links. Of course, you have to drive traffic, right? So you post some engaging stuff, and then you post a link post. People click on that, they go to your website. Okay, so really, be clear about the objective. When you're posting a link, realize what we're going to get out of this is website traffic. Okay, and you have to balance that with engaging content like photos and videos and status updates, right? Excuse me. So let's talk about photos now. Now, photos get the most engagement. You've probably heard this before. Photos are the best. Post pictures is the best way to go. That's what everybody says. That's what everybody hears, and this is true. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but the reason why photos get the most engagement is because they capture more physical real estate in the news feed. Okay, so even on mobile, if you post a picture, it takes up the entire screen. There's nothing else on there. No competition at all. So and that is the case with the browser. It definitely takes up a lot more space than a status update, and photos allow people to engage directly with the content. Okay, when I say directly, I mean an image goes under the conscious mind and into the subconscious. So images really engage with people on an emotional level, whereas status updates engage with people on that more higher thinking level. Now, the difference is that action originates, people signing up to volunteer because they're really passionate about a cause, or making a donation because they've had enough with how this issue is going. They want to make a change. Okay, these are all emotional. These are all emotional. We always have to think about engaging with our community on an emotional level with storytelling. Reason and logic and text and requiring, higher thinking, kind of higher processing, is not as effective as really going for the heart. Okay. Now, it's not about just posting pictures, though. Okay, because then, any photo would do. Really, the requirement in my mind is that the picture has to tell a story. And this is a little quiz I like to give every now and then when I do training in person training. Which photo tells a better story? And I guarantee you, I wish we had a poll here, but we don't. I guarantee you most of you are thinking B. B is the story. A, it's a good picture. The couple, we could say that they're a good-looking couple. And the house, it's not so much of a pretty house, but it's a good picture. It's well lit. It's nice smiles, but there's no story. There's nothing. Okay, the one on the right, there's a story. There's a woman running out of the house. There's a guy coming home from service, right? Coming home from Afghanistan, Iraq. It doesn't really matter, and he's got flowers behind his back, right? So there's a story right there. So think about stories when you're posting pictures. Okay. Here's another, this is a great example. So Denver Public Library, they take advantage of some sort of meme. We've all seen the horse head meme, people wearing horse heads in all sorts of different situations. And here we are with people reading a particular publication. And so this is a way for this library to kind of be on the same level as their community. They understand that their community really engages with funny stuff and fun stuff, and what they want to do is they want to engage their community on that level. Obviously, this is not something that you would do in the old days of marketing. You know, you wouldn't really present your organization like this, but this is kind of becoming part of the community. And that's the biggest shift I think that organizations have to go through with using social media in general, is going from a fortress, kind of, we have the message, we're going to give you the message, and you are simply going to react to that message and give us money when we want the money, or volunteer when we need volunteers, and that's it. That's the old way. The new way is we are equal. We're among you. We are, organization kind of has to behave like a person. You have to engage in dialogue, make friends, listen to others, respond, be useful, and be an invaluable member of whatever community it is. So that's really how organizations have to behave these days. Okay? Some resources for creating great images. Google Plus, in terms of curation, if you go to Google Plus, you type in a keyword, you can rank by the most viral. In other words, the most engaging content will usually show up at the top. You can go to Reddit. Reddit is a little not safe for work in some ways, but there's you will see the trending pictures as it relates to your cause. You can search by that too. Flickr, we all know Flickr. Fotolia is a place where you can license images. So Fotolia, I would recommend if you're trying to create a professional image. If you need an image to represent an idea and you just don't have that image, you can't create it yourself, but you want to license it. Okay? And then for editing, there's Pixlr, Photoshop, Over, Color Lovers. These are all links in the slides that you can look at later on. And my favorite tool, hands down, has to be Canva. Most of you know about Canva, but if you don't, you are going to love me for the rest of your life. Okay? Basically, Canva answers the problem of Photoshop and designers. If you are managing social media for your organization, no doubt you've come across the obstacle of, oh, we have to put our brand on our images. The marketing VP wants us to put our brand, or we have to post pictures this size, or the dimensions of the Facebook post are this size. How can we create something that's really attractive and compelling? Okay, so Canva actually gives you templates. If you go and you click a Facebook post in here, it will show you different formats and different text and beautifully designed templates that you can start with. Use your own image, use your own text, and you can publish right away. Most of this is free, by the way. The only time you pay for anything is when you have to pay for premium elements or photos or premium photos that they have. And they're only $1 each. So, but in 9 times out of 10, you really don't even have to use those elements. You can simply upload your own image and use their templates, download the image, and then you're good to go. Okay? It really does eliminate a lot of this nonsense about opening up Photoshop just to make a Facebook post. It doesn't really make any sense. Okay? So check that out later on. The other way to engage your people, probably one of the most effective ways, is to ask questions. And many of you already know this. But questions work, hands down. And this is some research from HubSpot about a year ago. It's showing, I'm sorry, I'm going to close the window. Hang on one quick second. Sorry about that. I have a neighbor doing a little bit of construction outside. So this is basically saying when you ask a question, you're more likely to get a response, which is almost common sense anyhow. Okay, and research also says that when you do post text updates on Facebook, keep it short, keep it less than 140 characters, and if you keep it short and sweet, the engagement, your potential for engagement will go up. All right. Now, how do we deal with a status update that's short? Again, we're going to focus on questions. Okay. Now, questions. the best type of question for social media or Facebook, let's stick with Facebook, are closed questions. And some of you might be scratching your head saying, geez, that's funny. In school, the teacher taught us that open questions were the way to facilitate a dialogue and get people talking, is with an open question. But that's not really the case with Facebook, because with an open question, you're requiring people to actually process something. They have to think. They have to stop and think how they feel about something. Okay? And so what this research here says that in fact, closed questions are more effective. Closed questions, if you look at all these words, they're associated with a closed question, giving you a choice, true, false, left, right, fill in the blank. So the reason why you're lowering the hurdle to entry, or basically making it easier for people to ask or answer, is that you are using a very small part of the brain when you post a closed question. It's that autocomplete part. When you go to Google and you type in a search term, you're going to get suggestions. So when someone asks you a closed question, for example, if I say, do you like chocolate or vanilla ice cream? You already have the answer. So you don't have to process anything. You already have the answer. You can simply engage with that question. So you automatically lower the hurdle that way, right? A couple of examples here. So this one's from Care2. You may read the labels on human food, but how often do you check what's in your pet food? Okay, so this is kind of a closed question. It's definitely more of a closed question than, hey, have you ever thought, or do you know, what's in your pet's food? What's in your pet's food? Oh wait, hang on, I'm going to go get the can. I'm going to read what's in the pet's food. That's a little bit laborsome. Okay. The other one says, this one's actually great. Topeka, Shawnee County Public Library, what are you reading? It's pretty simple. What are you reading? This one is great because it stands out. It's surprisingly and unexpectedly short. Okay, so someone's in the news feed, they're scanning, they're probably bored to tears with all the garbage in their Facebook news feed, and then they see this. It's a little bit more thoughtful and different and short. What are you reading? Oh, well, I'm reading this book. Okay, great. Well, that was interesting. Now I can keep moving on to the other boring stuff in my Facebook news feed. Okay. Don't forget that you should ask questions that are, don't limit your questions to just text updates or status updates, right? So ask questions in link posts, ask questions in a photo. And what I love about this example, this is one of their #1 posts over, I think, a 3-month period. And what I love about this is that they are giving people the answer. They're giving people the answer. Why do you support the Children's Hospital, Colorado? And here are the choices. So you can just pick one if you want. Okay, multiple choice. That's a really great way to go about posting questions. And what I recommend is, if you have that pad of pen and paper, write down, post a closed question, write a closed question. Ask your fans a closed question. Make sure it's something that they really care about and something that perhaps maybe people aren't even asking but needs to be asked, okay? Oops, sorry, let me just, okay. Call to action on your Facebook update post. This is something that I think a lot of organizations forget, but the research basically says, as it applies to your website and email, that you really should be using a call to action, okay, on Facebook. So posts that include like, get more likes. Posts that include comment, get more comments, okay? And posts that include share, get more shares, all right? So the research is basically saying when you ask people to do something, they're more likely to do it. But people are not robots. You can't just say, share this with your friends and then expect people to just listen to you, right? What you want to do is you want to nuance it a little bit. And this one says share if. Share this if you agree that we can't afford another tar sands pipeline, right? Now what's important about this is that little word. It's 2 letters, if. And it's acknowledging the free will of the viewer, right, of the Facebook user. It's acknowledging the free will of the community. And it's talking to people like they're adults, okay? And now if we realize, or if we remember that the primary reason why people use Facebook to begin with, the primary reason is so that they can tell their friends who they are, so they can share their life with other people and they can be understood and heard and they feel some sort of connection. So this gives people, it's not just a Facebook update, it's an opportunity for people to share who they are. Here's another one. This update was the #1 update for 1 year for this organization. This is from a breast cancer organization. Very simple, but it's saying share this update if you know someone impacted by breast cancer. And so obviously the people that see this, if that is the case, you know, breast cancer is a pretty powerful issue to be affected by. Even if, you know, if you don't have it yourself, you know someone who has it, it's a pretty intense experience to go through. And so people who've had that experience, it's personal and it's meaningful to them, and many people want to hold up their hand and say, yes, I know someone impacted by breast cancer. They're going to hold up their hand. And this, again, gives them that opportunity to do so, right? So think about that. Share if, and always relate it back to people, the passion, right? The passion, the connection that they have with the cause, okay? There are some other examples here on Pinterest. So there's a whole Pinterest board. I collect updates and I post them there just as examples as I see them. So you can go and check out that Pinterest board for more examples, right? Now someone's probably going to ask, well, John, this is all great and we're posting content on our Facebook page, but how do we get people to volunteer? How do we ask people to volunteer? Okay, well, you can, you know, use link posts to send them to your volunteer page. You might even want to create a custom tab on your Facebook page where people can sign up to volunteer, but always be mentioning volunteer opportunities, but more importantly, mention outcomes. Like, talk about outcomes. This is how our volunteers are impacted. This is the result that they got. This is the outcome. This is why people volunteer, right? Now, before I get to the next slide, I'm going to say something that's very important. People support your cause. People volunteer not for your organization. People don't really volunteer for your organization. What they do is they take advantage of changing. They're changing the world in a way that's important to them. Okay. So in other words, when someone signs up to be a habitat builder and they're building a house, they're doing that not for Habitat for Humanity. They're doing that because it fulfills a deep sense of meaning and worth in their life. That's what they're doing, and they want that. So talk about that. Don't talk about your organization and how, geez, we have so many volunteers, and we've been around for X number of years, and we're so great. Nobody really wants to hear about your organization. People do want to engage with you about the cause, about the issues, and about the things that they care about. Okay, so here's an example right here. Volunteer crew from Wells Fargo is helping to build right next to a sister home. Okay, a sister home. So what I love about this is that there's a whole story in here. We have two pictures. We have two houses here. They kind of look the same, right? So it's a brother and sister house, or two sisters, and I just love this. It really talks about community, right? So this is another Habitat home going next to another one. Think about all the content they can get out of this one situation, right? How these families relate to each other, the friendships that develop over the years. And then we see the volunteers down below. They look really happy. They're working on this together. They have their T-shirts on, right? So people want to be part of that. The image in this example is the top one. To me, that's the compelling image. Wow, look at that house. I can be part of that. This is so amazing that these families are right next to each other and supporting each other and really creating a really great connection that will last for probably their whole lifetime. I want to be part of that. So that's what I'm doing. I'm volunteering to do that. I'm not, Habitat for Humanity is great. Don't get me wrong, they're great. But it's not, I don't really have a passion for Habitat for Humanity. I have a passion for being involved in the lives of these two families. That's what I want, right? And it's important. It's always important to remember that. Digital learning day. So here's another example from California Library Literacy Services, right? Make a difference, make a difference, okay? And look at this. This is a great picture too. And of course, there's a link going back to their page. National Center for Family Literacy, reduce chronic absence, helps close achievement gaps. Download this toolkit. So here's a toolkit that people can download. Okay. Now let's talk about other channels very quickly. Always make a point of using email to get the word out about your Facebook page. And probably the easiest way to do this, that you can do consistently, is to promote individual posts that have recently performed well. So let's say that you do post an update and you're talking about a volunteer. It's a volunteer story. And for whatever reason, you hit the nail right on the head and it struck a chord. People are commenting, liking, and sharing. There really is some sort of engagement on that post, much more than your average post on your page. Carve out a little piece in your email newsletter, the next one that you send out, and create a volunteer stories section. Okay, volunteer stories. Every single newsletter that you have, or different emails, depends upon the situation, you can call out that post and say, Mary and John, they were doing this great volunteer situation. Here's their experience. It's incredible. And lots of people, you should read the comments. They're really funny. Some are funny, blah, blah, blah. Click here to add your comment. What do you think? Do you know this couple? Do you know these people? Do you want to volunteer? What's your experience? And encourage people to go and comment on that Facebook post. Okay? So you want to grab the permalink to that post and embed it into your email marketing software. The permalink, by the way, you can always get that on a Facebook post simply by clicking on the date of the post. It might say today, 2 hours ago, or September 3rd, specific date. You might say that. And what this does is that this uses your biggest asset, which is your email list, right? Your email list is very different from your Facebook fan base. Your Facebook fan base, these people are relative, you could say that these people are kind of dating. Okay, you're on dates with all these people, Facebook fans. But when they join your email list, you're kind of engaged, right? That's the engagement. When they volunteer and they volunteer again, you're married. Okay, hopefully. Hopefully it's a long-term relationship, right? And so what you want is you want your email subscribers, the people that are past a certain phase with you, you want them to share your organization, your cause with their friends. And that happens, again, as I said before, on Facebook. And this is a very simple way that you can do it, that you can do consistently. Call out a volunteer corner, stories about volunteers, okay? And link to those posts. Make sure that you have in real life covered really well. This library did it really well, almost maybe a little bit over the top, but it's huge information about how to engage with them on Facebook. And you can also use social media to give more awareness to your Facebook posts. Again, focus on the top performing posts. Don't waste your time with the posts that aren't performing that well. Okay? You can create a content calendar. I'm just going to whiz through this slide really quickly because there is a video that you can watch about using a content calendar. But Google Calendar, if you don't have a content calendar, I would start by creating a private Google Calendar. And again, the video gives you more description about that. But the value of a calendar is that it helps you get organized, especially if you have multiple people involved in a campaign. Fundraising department, grants people, development people, social media, Facebook, email. All this stuff should be laid out for everyone to see what's going on so that everybody's unified and the campaign kind of makes sense from beginning to end, whatever that campaign may be. Okay? So you can look at the video later on. Let's talk about boosted posts because this is something that people ask me a lot about. Which posts should we boost? And here's a very simple process to follow. The first is to use Facebook Insights. So whenever you want to boost a post on your page, don't just say, oh, this one feels really good. We should just boost it. I have a good feeling about this one. Gut feeling is good, but you always want to verify that. And use insights. If you go to your posts report, you can rank your post by engagement rate. Engagement rate is the one number that will indicate content quality. And you want to boost, you want to promote content that's your best stuff. You want more people to see your best stuff. Your posts that don't hit the mark and they were kind of boring, you just want to forget about that. Just move on, focus on the stuff that's working, and learn from the stuff that didn't work so well, and that's it. Okay, so you want to rank by engagement rate, and you can easily find out which posts are the best. And again, engagement rate is the percent of people that saw your update that did something. They clicked on it, liked it, commented, shared it, or whatever. They viewed a photo, they viewed a video. They did something. They are engaged. You made them do something. Okay, that's what that means. And so the higher the engagement rate, that is an indication of the good quality content, which you do want to boost. So you select your top performing boost. You'd selectively boost. So for example, this may not be a post that I would necessarily promote in my case, only because it really doesn't have much to do with my business. It's really just fun, and it's engaging people as a friend would engage a friend. Okay? So just because the post is performing really well, don't think that you have to spend money boosting it. Okay? And use targeting on boosted posts, so you can target pretty specifically on updates now on boosted posts, and they're adding more as well, more targeting criteria. But you can certainly target by location, gender, age, and interests. Now, if you want to, in terms of demographics, again, go back to Facebook Insights. You can look at people engaged. The people engaged report will tell you gender, age, location of people who are actively engaging with your content. You want to target more posts to people like them. You want people just like them to engage with your posts. Okay, so use that information in your boosted posts. Okay, so now we are at the end, Q&A, and I know probably for many I've scratched the surface, so I'm hoping that we can have a great discussion. And Shari, are you there right now?
I'm here, and oh boy, do we have a lot of awesome questions.
Oh, great.
So
okay.
I don't want to go too far over our time, just in folks in respect of folks' time. So I'm gonna let's switch over to our Q&A here. Sorry, my computer is freaking out. Here we go. Quick announcement about a lot of people, John, asked about. Oh, sorry, folks. I'm assuming you can see some interesting stuff going on my screen right now. A lot of people asked about that video you mentioned for creating a Google content calendar, and so I tried to send out a link. It didn't. Apparently, it's not working. So just FYI, everyone, the link is included in the slide deck that we will be sending to everyone. We'll send you links to it after the session, so you will have it to see.
Oh,
all right.
Okay. I'm going to get the correct URL as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. John will send that out right now as well. So that's
put it in the chat box.
Great. That's one little piece.
Yep.
So one question I thought that was really interesting that came in was, what if, many organizations are trying to engage multiple groups of people at once, whether it's multiple, multiple types of volunteers and donors, or maybe they're trying to engage volunteers as well as the folks whom they serve with their services. So how do you balance that when you're doing engagement on a Facebook page?
Yeah, that's a good question. So always try and focus on the cause. When you focus on outcome stories and really powerful stories, because that's what people care about. Whether for example, Habitat for Humanity. Let's say that there's an incredible story about a family that moved in, and now their kid, they moved into the house years ago, and now their son is an award-winning, scientist at MIT. Let's just say, okay, that's our story. That's pretty amazing, and I think any kind of constituent segment would love that. That's the kind. So you need to talk about stories and outcomes and really compelling, stories about the cause that people care about. Don't really talk about the organization and your events and stuff like that. That's good to get out there, but I think everyone really cares about why your organization exists, and it doesn't really matter whether they volunteer or whether they give you thousands of dollars or whether they're just on your email list. They are associated with the organization because they care about the cause that you represent. Engage them on that level.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So really all of the unbelievable volume of information that you gave us today really should be used to begin a relationship with people. And then once you strengthen that relationship and that engagement, then you figure out where they fit in your universe in order to have an impact with your organization and your cause. Would that be accurate?
I missed that last part, that last comment.
And once you've sort of created that relationship with them, that's when you figure out, are they a volunteer, or are they a donor, are they someone that you would serve? So Facebook is sort of maybe the first step in the engagement process.
Yeah. Well, the way that I see it is the best place to always start with your Facebook fans is your current people, because your current people are most likely to engage with your content. So let's go back to that Habitat for Humanity example. Let's say we post a blog post about this guy who's #1 student at MIT or scientist at MIT. A lot of people are going to engage with that, right? So that we want our current people to engage with that for sure. So we might want to send out an email about that and ask people to, leave a comment on Facebook. So that's a perfect example of where you would use email to leverage your community. But yeah, Facebook, unfortunately, that's where you're really going to engage people. The mix is going to be all over the map. People might be volunteers, people might be large donors, people might be just a casual Facebook fan. It's hard to really segment on Facebook. That's why you always want to go and always talk about the most compelling stories and let your Facebook fan base tell you what's working, what's not, by way of Facebook Insights. Because they'll tell you what kind of content they like. And you'll just learn over time.
Great. Okay. So I think one final question that everyone seems to be asking as well is, and do you have any tips for bringing that relationship to the next level, or bringing it offline even for organizations that do want to engage people in offline action?
Oh yeah, for sure. So what you want to do is, so Facebook is a place to engage people. But again, like I said before, you can't really segment. You can't capture. The name of the game on Facebook, in my mind, is capturing. So engage people in really great outcomes. But you have to do campaigns where you're capturing emails. So you might want to publish a link to your volunteer sign-up page and say, hey, here's a really great story about a volunteer. Don't miss this. Don't miss an opportunity to sign up. Or you might have a campaign where you're using something like ActionSprout. ActionSprout, if you just go to actionsprout.com, there's a lot more information about ActionSprout. But it does allow you to publish updates in the newsfeed that are asking people to, like, comment, or share, which we all know, but also stand with, sign up, volunteer, stop, make a change. So these are other action verbs that ActionSprout uses that are essentially Facebook actions that are taken to the next level, where someone says, yes, I'm going to stand with this person or put a stop to this. They click on that link and they're able to authorize the app to take their email. And then, of course, the organization, what do? They get that email. They're able to follow up with that person by email directly. So, and some, many people on the webinar might agree that you're more likely to convert a volunteer. In other words, get someone to sign up as a volunteer. You're more likely to do that by email, a direct ask by email, as opposed to just posting a Facebook update. Your success rate will be a little bit higher. So it's a little bit, it removes a few headaches if you think about Facebook as this is where we engage with people and we run campaigns to acquire emails, and then through email marketing, that's where we're really building up our volunteer sign-up rate.
Great. So it's about managing expectations. Facebook isn't necessarily a silver bullet. It's a tool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is an important thing to remember. Okay, great. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. If you're even a fraction of as busy as I am, then it's really valuable. But thank you, everyone, for coming today. There were so many questions that didn't get answered, but we'll try and address those in blog posts or follow-up. And John, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Remember, everyone, that we recorded this, and we're going to be sending you an email afterwards with links to the recording and the slide deck, so you will have it. Just a quick note, coming up next month, We're going to be talking with Bruce Birch about creating relationships with companies that are really lasting and will really provide benefits on both sides. So that's going to be a really interesting session, and that should be open for registration soon on our Learning Center at learn.volunteermatch.org. And that's all we've got for today. So once again, thank you everyone for attending, and huge thank you to John. People are already sending feedback about how great the session was.
Oh,
so
thank you
once again, and we'll see everyone back again soon for another Nonprofit Insights session. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.